I wish I liked Robert Edgar's latest movie, The Northman, as much as I liked his previous film, The Lighthouse. The Lighthouse is so wonderfully bizarre. It's a surreal nightmare of a movie. One of my favorite movies in years, which I know isn't saying much because there hasn't been like any good movies in years, but The Lighthouse is great and really stands out amongst the rest. I've only seen it once. I liked it so much I wanted to save it before watching it again right away. It just feels special. I was looking forward to seeing The Northman, and when the movie started, I was into it right away.
Hear me, Odin, All-Father of the gods.
I was stoked. I was watching it thinking, why aren't more people talking about this movie? The first 35 minutes of the movie are like some kind of Ridley Scott meets 300 if it were directed by David Lynch fever dream, with some definite influence from the God of War games as well. If the whole movie was as nuts and weird as the first 35 minutes, it would have been amazing. I was entranced by the first 35 minutes of this movie. It was full of this kinetic imagery. It was like an extended music video in like the best way possible. And although the visuals are great, the story is pretty basic. It's The Lion King. There's a king, and he has a young son, and then the king's brother kills the king, and you watch the young son run away and then grow up. But at this point, the movie is just so enticing with these visuals. It's like a vision quest you're going on. Then it's just like, where are we going with this? And even though the story is so basic, you're not even really caring or thinking about that. You're so wrapped up in this visual splendor it's throwing at you. But at the 35-minute mark, the movie reveals, oh no, this is going to have a definite plot that we're going to have to slog through. It becomes an hour and 45 minutes of an insanely straightforward and linear revenge story of one man trying to kill another man. The moment that the movie reveals to you that it's just going to be a simple revenge story is almost exactly at the 35-minute mark. And this moment took me out of the film directly. It was just, I was into the movie and then I wasn't into the movie. And it was everything about it. It's this random character who we don't even know or don't even care. He's giving this important information that is going to set the path for the rest of the film. He does it in a way where he doesn't even know he's revealing all this important information. He does a lot of it with his back turned toward the camera, and it looks like a poorly ADR'd line. I mean, this whole sequence is most likely ADR. If you look at this location and if you hear these vocals and you pay attention, it looks pretty ADR. But this guy looks like they even like added in extra stuff as he turned around and walked away. They were trying to fit in extra pieces of information just in case this wasn't straightforward. They needed to rewrite it in the post process and like really hit you over the head and let you know exactly what is going to happen.
Why are his slaves bound for Iceland? Fiona rules over Rupsey.
He fled to the backwater frontier with his wife and son after King Harald of Norway took his kingdom. Fiona killed his brother for nothing. Now he's a sheep farmer.
I mean, look at this sequence. Like, look at the guy's lips here. It doesn't really look like he's saying what he says. And then, like, he turns around. He says the rest of the line walking away from the camera. Like, you don't even see him for a part now. He's just behind stuff and you're still hearing his voice. It's just like, yeah, they felt the need to really, really over-explain this. And this whole moment took me out of the movie. And it also was, like, really sad because you're just like, oh, no, that's all this is going to be. He's just going to, like, look for the guy who killed his dad. And like, you know, that's going to be the whole movie. It's just like, oh God, I hope they do that well. And like, they don't. They do it in a very aggravating fashion. I'm not a fan of old fish face in anything, but in this movie, it's not her fault. Her character was uninteresting and underwritten. She was only there as a plot device so she can produce Alexander Skarsgård a son. That's it. As for Alexander Skarsgård, I've seen him in some good movies and like I've never thought much about him, but his hulking, looming presence in this movie was fantastic. He was pure Kratos. His first fight scene walking through that town brought me back to the first God of War for PS2. Loved that scene and loved him in it. There are so many plot holes and facepalm stupid moments in this movie. It's so unfortunate. It's like, for a movie that looks so damn good, it's like, why does it have to be so dumb? I mean, there's some bad CGI here and there, but besides that, it's such a great looking movie. If the movie kept the Barry Lyndon style of the opening, where the shots were framed to look like classic paintings, it would have been amazing. This scene is an example of such bad writing. It's the scene where the son has to confront his uncle who murdered his dad, but for some reason, that scene in this movie happens way too early. It happens 40-something minutes into the movie. This movie is well over 2 hours long. There is no reason that he should be confronting the man he wants to murder in a revenge movie this soon into the movie, unless they're just gonna like have him boom kill him, and that would be great. Like, you just watch him kill him and the movie's over with. But no, of course that doesn't happen. Instead, we get this laughable scene. So the main character's uncle here doesn't recognize the main character because he hasn't seen him since he was a kid. He recognizes his uncle, of course. The only reason he's here is because he somehow got onto this boat of like slaves that I guess the uncle can have work on his farm if he wants. And the uncle gets one look of them and he says they won't last the winter, which is an odd thing to say because if you look at this guy, he looks pretty hardy. You wouldn't get one look at this guy and think he couldn't last the winter, but that's what he immediately says.
They won't last the winter. Sell all of them.
They won't last the winter. Sell all of them. That's what he says. So the main character has to show that he will last the winter. So he goes, "Arr, arr, arr," like a big scary man, and he knocks the others down. Oh, well, now the uncle has to see a look-see at this boy. And this is all just concocted so these characters can have this face-to-face moment here. And there's supposed to be like some tension, you know. And if he actually went and broke the guy's neck in this sequence, that would be awesome. But that doesn't happen. Instead, he just is like, oh yeah, I'll take this guy. He seems good. It makes absolutely no sense because then right after then he says I'll just take the rest of them as well. So it makes all of this pointless. This was just a poorly written sequence. The writers wanted there to be some sequence where like these two had a face off face to face, but he also wanted the rest of these slaves be part of the group because the girl is in this group and he wants a love story with this girl. So the guy originally says he wants none of these people. They won't last the winter. One tough guy shows that he's tougher and knocks the rest of them down. He takes the tough guy and then he says he'll also take the rest of the people as well. It doesn't make any sense. It's an unneeded sequence whatsoever. It's just for this face-to-face moment, and the rest of it doesn't make any sense surrounding it, and they just don't care. It's just the scene in the movie. And then he starts getting really specific about which ones he wants, and he wants this one to do that, and this one to that, and then the writers now want another face-to-face confrontation, so now he has to have a face-off with the girl character, and he has to say creepy things to her. After he just dismissed not wanting any of them, now he specifically wants them all for different purposes. It's the weirdest written sequence. I don't know why they just don't cut out the first part where he says he wants none of them.
These two for the kitchen, and her for the laundry. And choose 2 males for the fields. And her, too. Keep her arms white. And her hair long.
Overall, a very disappointing, but still incredibly impressive movie. It just makes me happy that someone is still making movies because they have a vision and it's not just because they want to make money. And this is a pretty crazy leap for the director. The opening couple of minutes of the movie were all CGI. That's very different than directing actors on location and on sets. Willem Dafoe was awesome. The scene with Stellan and Alexander Skarsgård together as a father and son acting duo was just nuts. I liked how they had almost everything grounded in reality. There were a lot of weirdos and weirdness, but most of what happened was never truly magical. Hell was just a volcano. The demons they saw at night were from mushroom poisoned soup. When he fought the skeleton, it ended up just being his imagination, which was kind of an eye roll moment, but I get why they did it like that. It's like it's trying to have its Pan's Labyrinth moments, but it's not fully willing to commit to being a fantasy film. It's trying to stay in this historical fiction realm. Although at times it was like they were breaking the rules of this reality they were trying to create. Like only being able to take the sword out of the sheath at night, and how the main character was controlling the dogs was just too supernatural. And of course, the opening with the sun sticking his hand in Ethan Hawke's glowing chest. Although that's one of the best parts of the movie, so I don't care. At that point, I didn't expect the movie to have any sense of reality, and I just thought it was going to be like a Nordic themed bad mushroom trip. What's the most aggravating is that it is just this revenge story, where the main character is in such close proximity to the man he's trying to kill, but he takes forever to do so. It had very strong Departed vibes, where this new guy shows up and bad stuff starts to happen, and no one points fingers at the new guy. In the Hong Kong film Infernal Affairs that The Departed is based off of, the Leonardo DiCaprio character has been undercover for years before doing anything to make the triad start smelling a rat. In The Departed, as soon as Leonardo DiCaprio joins Jack Nicholson's crew, fishy stuff starts happening and they suspect a rat. There's a scene where the mobsters question Leo and rough him up a bit. But then that's it. Leo is the obvious rat, but the movie doesn't care. And that's what the Northman does. To even more extreme extent, this gigantic thug of a man just moved into their town. Soon after, everyone is being killed. No one even questions once that it might be the menacing, beastly new guy. They introduce Alexander Skarsgård as this brutal, unstoppable force. The character we've met would just walk up to the guy who killed his dad and break his neck. He could and would have just killed that guy immediately. Instead, he's trying to go all Moses on him every night, having a different type of plague-like thing happen. It's not at all what they make this character up to be. It is not satisfying for the audience because it is not what we want to see with this character. I liked when Christian Bale played Moses. I highly recommend Exodus, Gods, and Kings. It's Ridley Scott doing the 10 Commandments. I honestly don't get why that movie was such a critical and commercial dud. It's equally as good as The Northman. Not as strange, of course. The Northman was a commercial flop, but it was adored by critics. It's popular now to hate Ridley Scott for some reason. He's treated by the critics like he's Michael Bay. I just don't get it. In terms of recent epic oddball movies, I think Dune is much better than The Northman. Dune is also visually fascinating, but I mean, it is also far from a perfect movie. I mean, the action in Dune was terrible. Jason Momoa was laughable like at every moment he was in the movie. Oh, the executives clearly felt that a movie as expensive as Dune needed some heroic action scenes. It didn't. And what's the deal with this outfit? What's he wearing? Everyone else in the movie has an elaborate wardrobe, some sort of crazy costume, and he's like wearing this wrinkled white shirt. It's like he came in late, and they're just like, "Well, Jason Momoa was just cast last minute. What do we got lying around? Oh, we have this wrinkly white shirt. Well, why don't we throw it on him? Does it look good? No, it doesn't. But this sequence isn't going to make it into the movie anyway, right? I mean, come on." But the story is very interesting in Dune. It made me want to read the books. I had no expectations for Dune. I don't care anything about Dune. The director is pretty cool, but he's not my favorite. I do like that guy's films Prisoners and Enemy. That was peak Jake Gyllenhaal years. Those two movies and Nightcrawler by Dan Gilroy. So yeah, go out and watch The Lighthouse, Dune, Exodus, and the first 35 minutes of The Northman. Or have a Jake Gyllenhaal marathon and watch Prisoners, Enemy, and Nightcrawler.